I'm going to make a promise to you all right now and say that I'm going to try to make this review a bit more informative than most of the reviews you've seen for this movie up until this point. And that means I will under no circumstances be using the term fun. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button, and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
Come on. Do it! Do it!
Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire follows the almighty Kong and Godzilla, sort of, as they face a colossal threat hidden deep within the planet, challenging their very existence and the survival of the human race.
Whoopie f***ing do. Hey, I'm impressed.
I don't know why, but I keep wanting to call this movie Godzilla vs. Kong, even though we already have a movie called Godzilla vs. Kong. I never thought I would say this about this franchise because, frankly, I didn't think it would last this long. But a lot of these movies are kind of starting to run together. The MonsterVerse films have been kind of a mixed bag for me personally. I enjoyed some of the earlier entries, and not so much the later entries. And from the first trailer that I saw for this movie, there wasn't a whole lot that spoke to me about this one either. It looked like your typical MonsterVerse beat-em-up that would be completely ridiculous, and for the most part, that's exactly what it is.
That makes sense.
I think my main issue with this movie, and with movies like it, is that when you keep adding new monsters, and you keep trying to build the lore, and make everything connect together, for me it kind of takes away the mystique of these iconic monsters like Godzilla and King Kong. The awe factor just isn't there anymore when they are on screen. I remember how I felt the first time I saw Kong snatch up a blonde woman in the jungle, or climb to the top of the Empire State Building, or how I felt the first time I saw Godzilla charge up his atomic breath, or walk through a destroyed city. And we can't really have these moments anymore, because at this point, these characters feel a bit overexposed. They basically turn them into superheroes in these MonsterVerse movies. And this movie is basically their Avengers, where they all come together to defeat a bigger threat. And I'm just being honest when I say that's really not all that interesting to me.
No, don't like that.
Now, I know there have been movies in the past that people look very fondly on that have done similar things, but it's just not personally how I like to see these creatures depicted. That being said, I do understand that there are a lot of people who disagree with that, and are excited about the prospect of seeing these gargantuan slugfests. And that's cool, I get it. If you are one of those people, I would venture to say you will probably enjoy this movie. But for me personally, I'm just looking for a little bit more out of my cinematic experience, I guess. Which is why a movie like Godzilla Minus One appeals to me a bit more. Now, I'm not going to turn this video into a comparison between the two movies, because let's face it, there is no comparison. They're not even in the same stratosphere.
Don't bother.
For me, the highlight of this movie was Kong through and through. I mean, this is essentially his film. He gets the most screen time, even when compared to all the human characters, and for the most part, they make him feel like a legit badass, and being a Kong fan, I appreciated that. Now, his story about him being the last of his kind and lonely, and then he conveniently comes across this smaller version of himself, that was pretty cliche. But I do give this film some credit for giving Kong extended periods of time on film by himself, where he is the focal point. There's no dialogue, it's just Kong figuring shit out. It almost made me wish that they fully committed to that idea and didn't have human characters at all. I think it would have made for a much more enjoyable film if they had gone in that bold direction.
We were on the verge of greatness. We were this close.
As for Godzilla, I don't know if it's just me, but he kind of feels like an afterthought for large portions of this film. I don't know if that was done on purpose to make him feel more like a weapon and less like a character, but in the end, Godzilla does feel underutilized in this film to me. And yes, there is a story reason for why he turns pink, for those of you who are asking. As far as the villain of this film goes, I have to be honest, he feels like a shallow AI creation. It's like they put King Kong, the Lion King, and Congo into a program and out popped the Scar King. Just completely forgettable, especially when you compare him to other villains we've had in the franchise. As far as Godzilla and Kong teaming up, I get it, I understand why it needs to happen. Even if it is done in a way that leaves something to be desired. But it's clearly only being done to give you these crowd-pleasing moments at the most basic level, and in that aspect, I guess it succeeded. Godzilla and Kong even get their Batman vs. Superman moment with a twist.
You're letting him kill
Mothra!
What does that mean?
The biggest weak link of this film, as usual, is the human characters. I found Brian Tyree Henry's character to be more obnoxious than useful. They wanted Dan Stevens' character to be cool, but he feels like a character that I've seen a million times before in other movies. The lead, Rebecca Hall, is pretty one-note and forgettable, and is pretty much just there to deliver exposition. The young deaf girl in the film, played by Kaylee Huddle, was probably the biggest swing they took in this film from a character standpoint, even if she did come off as the second coming of Marvel's Echo at times. But with her character, they at least tried to do something a little bit different. I like how they tied her origins into Kong's origins and made her a more significant cog in this MonsterVerse story. I do have to say though, the whole human is somehow connected with the monster trope is getting a bit old at this point.
Something very familiar about all this.
And they do some very off-the-wall stuff with her character towards the end of the film that feels like it was taken from another movie and plopped into this one. Overall, Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire is simultaneously exactly what you expect it to be, but also a little bit unconventional in spots where you can see they were trying to take chances, but a lot of those chances really didn't pay off for me personally. Some people will have a great time with this movie. I can see some longtime fans and even children being able to enjoy it. But for me, it was just more of the same. Another kind of shallow, big budget blockbuster that really made me feel nothing, and that's why I'm going to give it the Careless Sam Gerard.
I don't care!
Y'all be cool. Nah.